The dust storm hit Belmont, Montana, with a fury that seemed to have been sent straight from hell itself. And Regina Lawrence knew she was going to die out here if she did not find shelter soon. She pressed her back against the rough wooden wall of what remained of an abandoned trading post, her traveling dress torn and filthy from 3 days of walking through the unforgiving terrain. Her lips moved in desperate prayer, eyes squeezed shut against the stinging sand that whipped around her like angry spirits. She had left St. Louis 6 weeks ago with a wagon train headed west, but cholera had swept through their group like wildfire, taking her aunt and uncle who had been her only family. And in the chaos of burying the dead and tending the sick, the wagon master had decided to push forward without waiting for stragglers. Regina had been collecting water from a stream when they left, and by the time she returned to find them gone, she had nothing but the clothes on her back and a small canteen. "Please," she whispered into the howling wind, "please send me help. I cannot do this alone anymore." The words had barely left her lips when she heard the steady clop of horse hooves cutting through the storm. Regina's eyes flew open, and through the swirling dust, she saw the silhouette of a rider approaching. The figure was tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered, with a hat pulled low against the wind. As he drew closer, she could make out more details: a weathered leather vest, a bandana covering the lower half of his face, and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see straight through the storm. The cowboy pulled his horse to a stop in front of her, and even through the chaos of the wind, his voice carried clear and strong. "Your prayer just got answered." He swung down from his saddle with practiced ease, and Regina found herself staring up at a man who looked to be in his late 20s, with sun-darkened skin and sandy brown hair visible beneath his hat. His jaw was strong, dusted with several days' worth of stubble, and those blue eyes held a mixture of concern and determination that made her heart skip in a way she did not quite understand. "Can you ride?" he asked, his voice raised just enough to carry over the wind but not shouting. Regina nodded, though truthfully she had only ridden a handful of times in her life. The cowboy seemed to sense her hesitation because he moved closer, his large hands gentle as they gripped her waist. "I have got you," he said, and then he was lifting her onto his horse as easily as if she weighed nothing at all. He swung up behind her, one arm coming around her waist to hold her steady. "My ranch is about 2 miles east. Can you hold on that long?" "Yes," Regina managed, her voice hoarse from thirst and dust. She felt him kick the horse into motion, and they plunged into the storm. True to his word, his arm remained solid around her middle, keeping her anchored against his chest. Regina could feel the warmth of him even through her dress and his shirt, could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing against her back. It was the first time in days that she had felt truly safe, and despite the circumstances, despite not even knowing this man's name, she found herself relaxing into his hold. The ride felt both endless and impossibly short. When buildings finally emerged from the dust, Regina nearly wept with relief. The cowboy guided his horse toward a large barn, and once they were inside the relative shelter of the structure, the sound of the wind became muffled, less threatening. He dismounted first, then reached up to help her down. Regina's legs nearly gave out when her feet hit the ground, and once again those strong hands steadied her. "Easy now," he said, and this time she could hear his voice properly. It was deep and warm, with a slight roughness that suggested years of giving orders and being obeyed. "When did you last eat?" Regina tried to remember. 2 days ago, I think. Maybe 3. His jaw tightened. "Come on, let me get you inside." He led her across the yard to a modest ranch house, one hand on her elbow to steady her against the wind that still managed to buffet them even in the short distance between buildings. Once inside, he closed the door firmly and removed his hat, hanging it on a peg by the entrance. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a sturdy wooden table. "I will get you some water first, then food." Regina sank into the chair gratefully, looking around the space. It was a simple home, clearly belonging to a bachelor, but it was clean and well maintained. There was a stone fireplace along one wall, a small kitchen area, and a doorway that presumably led to a bedroom. The furniture was handmade but solid, and there were few personal touches beyond a rifle mounted above the fireplace and a photograph on the mantel of an older couple. The cowboy returned with a cup of water, and Regina drank it so quickly she nearly choked. He refilled it twice more before she finally felt satisfied. "Slowly on this next one," he cautioned. "Your stomach needs to remember what food is like." He moved to the kitchen area and began pulling out supplies: bread, dried meat, some cheese. As he worked, Regina studied him more carefully. He moved with the confidence of a man comfortable in his own space, and there was a natural grace to his movements despite his size. She found herself noticing the way his shoulders filled out his shirt, the capable look of his hands as he sliced the bread. "I should introduce myself," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Owen Patterson. This is my ranch, the Double P. Regina Lawrence," she replied. "And I cannot thank you enough for rescuing me. I truly thought I was going to die out there." Owen turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "What is a lady like you doing out in a dust storm alone? Where is your family, your husband?" "Dead and gone," Regina said, and she was surprised by how steady her voice remained. "My parents died of influenza when I was 16. I went to live with my aunt and uncle in St. Louis. 6 weeks ago, we joined a wagon train heading west. My uncle wanted to start fresh in Oregon, make his fortune. But cholera hit us hard just after we crossed into Montana territory. My aunt and uncle both died within days of each other. I was collecting water from a stream when the wagon train moved on, and by the time I got back, they were gone. I have been walking for 3 days trying to catch up or find civilization. Then the storm hit." Owen's expression darkened. "They left you. What kind of wagon master abandons a woman alone in hostile territory? One who had already lost half his party to disease," Regina said quietly. "I am not defending him, but I understand the desperation. Everyone was scared and they wanted to keep moving, put distance between themselves and the sickness." Owen set a plate in front of her with bread, meat, and cheese arranged on it. "Eat slowly, small bites." Regina nodded and picked up a piece of bread. The first bite tasted like heaven, and she had to force herself not to wolf it down. Owen poured himself some coffee and sat across from her, watching to make sure she followed his instructions. "You have anywhere to go?" he asked after a moment. "Any other family?" Regina shook her head. "No one. My mother was an only child, and my father's family disowned him when he married her. They thought she was beneath him, not good enough for their precious son." "So you were heading to Oregon with no plan for what would happen if your aunt and uncle did not make it?" It was not a question, but Regina answered anyway. "I was their responsibility. I did not have much choice in the matter. And honestly, I was grateful they took me in at all after my parents died. My uncle was not the warmest man, but he provided for me, gave me a roof over my head. That is more than many orphans can say." Owen was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming on the table in a thoughtful rhythm. "Storm will probably last through the night. You can stay here, sleep in my bed, I will take the floor." "I cannot put you out of your own bed," Regina protested. "You can and you will," Owen said firmly. "No arguments, you have been through hell and you need proper rest. Besides, I have slept on worse than a clean floor." Regina wanted to argue further, but the exhaustion was catching up with her now that she was safe and fed. Her eyelids felt heavy and she could barely keep her head up. Owen seemed to notice because he stood and offered her his hand. "Come on. Let me show you where you can wash up and get some rest." He led her to a small room off the main living area. There was a simple bed with clean sheets, a washstand with a basin and pitcher, and a trunk at the foot of the bed. Owen poured water into the basin and pulled a clean towel from the trunk. "It is not much, but the water is fresh and the towel is clean. I will be right outside if you need anything." "Thank you," Regina said, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. "You are a good man, Owen Patterson." Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion she could not quite name, but then he smiled slightly and tipped his head. "Get some rest, Regina Lawrence. Things will look better in the morning." He closed the door behind him, leaving her alone. Regina looked down at herself, at her filthy dress and dust-caked skin, and nearly laughed at what a sight she must be. She had been raised to be a proper lady, taught all the social graces and etiquette that sent. Louis society demanded, but none of that mattered much when you were fighting for survival in the Montana wilderness. She washed as best she could with the basin of water, removing layers of dirt and grime until she felt almost human again. Her dress was ruined beyond saving, but it was all she had, so she would have to make do. Finally, she lay down on the bed, and despite the strangeness of the situation and the howling wind outside, she fell asleep almost immediately. When Regina woke, sunlight was streaming through the small window and the world was quiet. She sat up, momentarily disoriented, before the events of the previous day came flooding back. She was in Owen Patterson's ranch house, safe from the storm and very much alive. She stood and smoothed down her dress as best she could, then opened the door and stepped into the main room. Owen was at the stove, cooking something that smelled absolutely divine. He had changed into a fresh shirt and had shaved, and Regina found herself staring at the clean lines of his jaw, the way his hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck. He turned when he heard her, and his face brightened with a smile. "Morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in weeks," Regina admitted. "What time is it?" "Nearly noon." "You slept for almost 14 hours. He gestured to the table. "Sit. I have got eggs and bacon ready and fresh coffee." Regina sat, and moments later he placed a plate in front of her piled high with food. Her stomach growled loudly, and Owen chuckled. "I would say your appetite has returned." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Owen spoke again. "I have been thinking about your situation. You have got no money, no family, nowhere to go. That about right?" Regina nodded, shame coloring her cheeks. "I am afraid so. I had a small amount of money sewn into my dress, but it is gone now, must have fallen out during my journey. I have nothing to offer anyone, no skills beyond embroidery and piano playing." "Can you cook?" The question surprised her. "Some basic meals. My aunt insisted I learn, said no man wants a wife who cannot feed him, even if they have servants to do the work." "Can you clean, do laundry, mend clothes?" "Yes, all of that." Owen leaned back in his chair, studying her with those piercing blue eyes. "Here is what I am thinking. I need help around the ranch. I've got 2 ranch hands who help with the cattle and the heavy work, but the house is always a mess. My clothes are falling apart because I cannot sew worth a damn, and my cooking is barely edible. You need a place to stay and a way to earn money. So I am proposing an arrangement. You stay here, take care of the house and the cooking, and I will pay you a fair wage plus room and board. Save up enough, and eventually you can decide what you want to do next, whether that is heading to Oregon or somewhere else entirely." Regina stared at him. "You would do that? Let me stay here, pay me, even though you barely know me." "I am a pretty good judge of character," Owen said. "And something tells me you are trustworthy. Besides, I could use the help. Running a ranch alone is not easy." "What will people think?" Regina asked. "An unmarried man and woman living under the same roof. People always talk," Owen said with a shrug. "But Belmont is a small town, and most folks know me well enough to know I am not going to take advantage of a woman in a bad situation. If it bothers you too much, we can see about finding you a room in town, but that will eat into your wages." Regina thought about it. The proper thing to do would be to insist on separate lodging to protect both their reputations. But the truth was she had no desire to be alone right now, not after everything she had been through. And there was something about Owen that made her feel safe, protected. She trusted him in a way that defied logic, given they had only met yesterday. "I accept your offer," she said, "and I will earn my keep, I promise you that. You will not regret taking me in." Owen's smile was warm and genuine. "I do not think I will." Over the next few weeks, Regina settled into life at the Double P Ranch. She woke early each morning to prepare breakfast for Owen and his two ranch hands, Ben and Charlie, who turned out to be friendly men in their 40s who treated her with nothing but respect. She spent her days cleaning, cooking, mending clothes, and learning the rhythms of ranch life. It was hard work, harder than anything she had done in St. Louis, but it was also satisfying in a way her old life had never been. Owen was a patient teacher, showing her how to feed the chickens, collect eggs, tend the small vegetable garden behind the house. He never made her feel foolish for not knowing things, never lost his temper when she made mistakes. And slowly, as the days turned into weeks, Regina found herself looking forward to their conversations over breakfast and dinner, to the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, to the sound of his voice calling her name. She was falling in love with him, she realized one evening as she watched him from the kitchen window. He was in the corral, working with a young horse, his movements patient and sure. The setting sun painted everything golden, and Owen looked like something out of a painting, strong and capable and impossibly handsome. The realization should have frightened her, but instead it filled her with a warm certainty. This was where she was meant to be. This man was who she was meant to be with. Now she just had to figure out if he felt the same way. As it turned out, she did not have to wait long. That evening, after Ben and Charlie had gone back to the bunkhouse and Regina was washing dishes, Owen came up beside her with a towel to dry. "You have been here almost a month now," he said, his voice casual but with an undercurrent of something more. "Has it been that long already?" Regina rinsed a plate and handed it to him. "Time has gone by so quickly." "Regina." He set the plate down and turned to face her fully. "I need to tell you something, and I am just going to say it straight because I am not good at fancy words or dancing around a subject." Regina's heart began to pound. "What is it?" "I think I am falling in love with you," Owen said, his blue eyes intense and earnest. "I know it is fast. I know we have not known each other long, but I cannot stop thinking about you. When I wake up, I am looking forward to seeing you at breakfast. When I am out working, I am thinking about what you might have cooked for dinner. When I go to bed, I am thinking about you sleeping in the next room and wishing you were beside me instead." Regina could barely breathe. "Owen, you do not have to say anything right now," he continued. "I know you have been through a lot, and the last thing I want is to pressure you or make you feel like you owe me anything because I gave you a place to stay. If you want to keep things as they are, employer and employee, I will respect that. But I had to tell you the truth, had to let you know how I feel." Regina set down the dish she was holding and turned to face him fully, reaching up to cup his face in her wet, soapy hands. "You absolute fool. I have been falling in love with you too. I thought I was going insane. falling for my employer after only a few weeks, but I cannot help it. You are the kindest, most honorable man I have ever met, and when I am with you, I feel like I am finally home." The smile that spread across Owen's face was like sunrise, bright and beautiful and full of promise. "You mean that? Every word." He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but Regina had no intention of pulling away. When his lips met hers, it was gentle and sweet, a question and an answer all at once. She had been kissed before, quick stolen kisses at parties in St. Louis, but nothing had prepared her for this, for the way Owen's kiss made her feel like she was melting and flying all at once. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Owen rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right. I want to court you properly, take you to town dances, introduce you to people as the woman I am going to marry. Because that is where this is heading, Regina. I want you to be my wife." "Yes," Regina breathed. "Yes to all of it." Owen kissed her again, deeper this time, his arms coming around her to pull her close. Regina wrapped her arms around his neck and lost herself in the sensation, in the feeling of being wanted and cherished and loved. The next few months were some of the happiest of Regina's life. True to his word, Owen courted her properly. He took her into Belmont every Saturday, introducing her to the shopkeepers and the other townspeople. He brought her to the church socials and the town dances, where he would hold her close as they swayed to the music. He bought her a new dress from the general store, a beautiful blue calico that matched her eyes, and the look on his face when she wore it for the first time made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. The people of Belmont accepted Regina readily, especially once it became clear that Owen was serious about her. The women included her in their sewing circles and recipe exchanges, and the men tipped their hats respectfully when they passed her on the street. She became part of the community, and for the first time since her parents died, Regina felt like she truly belonged somewhere. Owen continued to surprise her with his thoughtfulness. He bought her books because she mentioned missing the library in St. Louis. He brought her wildflowers from the meadow because he said they reminded him of her smile. He taught her to ride properly, patient and encouraging as she learned to control the mare he gave her as a gift. "Her name is Stella," he said as he helped Regina into the saddle for the first time. "She is gentle and well-trained, perfect for a beginner." Regina stroked the mare's neck, feeling the soft warmth of her coat. "She is beautiful. Thank you, Owen." "A woman in Montana needs to know how to ride," Owen said, swinging up onto his own horse. "Besides, I want to be able to take you out to see the ranch properly, show you all the places I love." And he did. Over the next few weeks, Owen took Regina all over the Double P Ranch, showing her the creek where he used to swim as a boy, the meadow where the wildflowers grew thick in summer, the high ridge where you could see for miles in every direction. He told her stories about his childhood, about his parents who had died in a wagon accident when he was 20, leaving him the ranch and a determination to make them proud. "I miss them every day," he admitted one afternoon as they sat by the creek, their horses grazing nearby. "My father taught me everything I know about ranching, and my mother was the kindest woman I ever knew. She would have loved you." "I wish I could have met them," Regina said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "They would have been so happy to see me settling down," Owen said, wrapping his arm around her. "My mother used to worry I would end up an old bachelor, too stubborn and set in my ways to ever find a wife. I guess she was almost right. If you had not come along when you did, I probably would have stayed alone." "Well, I am very glad I prayed for shelter that day," Regina said with a smile. "Best decision I ever made." Owen laughed and kissed the top of her head. "Second best." The best decision was saying yes when I asked to court you." As autumn approached, Owen started talking more seriously about marriage. He wanted to marry her before winter set in, he said, wanted her to be his wife in truth and not just in his heart. Regina agreed wholeheartedly. She had no desire for a long engagement, not when she knew with absolute certainty that Owen was the man she wanted to spend her life with. The proposal itself came on a crisp October evening. Owen had taken her up to the high ridge to watch the sunset, and as the sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink, he got down on one knee. "Regina Lawrence, you came into my life like a miracle, and every day since has been a gift. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. Will you marry me, make me the happiest man in Montana?" "Yes," Regina said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The ring he slipped onto her finger was simple but beautiful, a gold band with a small diamond that sparkled in the fading light. Owen stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that made her knees weak. "I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this," he promised. "I could never regret you," Regina said. "You are my answered prayer, Owen, my miracle." They were married in the small church in Belmont on a sunny Saturday in late October. Regina wore a cream-colored dress that the town seamstress had helped her make, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Owen wore his best suit, his hair slicked back, looking so handsome that Regina's breath caught when she saw him waiting at the altar. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. Ben and Charlie stood as Owen's witnesses, and Mary Sullivan, the seamstress who had become Regina's friend, stood as hers. The preacher spoke about love and commitment, about building a life together through good times and bad. When it came time for the vows, Owen's voice was strong and sure. "I, Owen Patterson, take you, Regina Lawrence, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to stand by you through whatever comes our way, to be your partner and your best friend. You are my heart, Regina, and I am yours." Regina's voice shook with emotion as she said her own vows. "I, Regina Lawrence, take you, Owen Patterson, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you with everything I am, to support you and encourage you, to build a home and a life with you. You saved me in every way a person can be saved, and I will spend the rest of my life showing you how grateful I am, how much I love you." When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and told Owen he could kiss his bride, the entire church erupted in applause. Owen pulled Regina close and kissed her deeply, and Regina felt like her heart might burst from happiness. The reception was held at the town hall, with food and music and dancing. The whole town turned out to celebrate, and Regina was overwhelmed by the warmth and acceptance she felt. These people had welcomed her, embraced her as one of their own, and now they were celebrating her marriage with genuine joy. Owen barely left her side all evening, his hand always finding hers, his eyes constantly seeking her out. When they danced, he held her close and whispered in her ear, "I cannot wait to get you home, Mrs. Patterson." The words sent shivers down her spine. Mrs. Patterson. She was Owen's wife now, truly and completely. They left the party as the sun was setting, amid a shower of rice and well wishes. The ride back to the ranch was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts, but it was a comfortable silence, full of anticipation and love. When they reached the house, Owen dismounted and then reached up to lift Regina down from her horse. But instead of setting her on her feet, he swept her up into his arms. "What are you doing?" Regina laughed. "Carrying my bride over the threshold," Owen said, grinning. "It is tradition." He carried her into the house and kicked the door shut behind them. Then he set her down carefully and cupped her face in his hands. "I love you," Regina Patterson. "I love you too," Regina whispered. What followed was a night of tenderness and passion, of whispered words and gentle touches, of learning each other in the most intimate way possible. Owen was patient and caring, making sure Regina felt safe and cherished every moment. And when they finally fell asleep in each other's arms, Regina knew she had found her place in the world, her home, her forever. The first year of their marriage was full of adjustments and joy. Regina continued to manage the household, but now as mistress of the house rather than an employee. She took pride in making the ranch house a true home, adding small touches that made the space feel warm and welcoming. She planted flowers in the spring, made curtains for the windows, and filled the rooms with the smells of fresh baking and good cooking. Owen taught her more about ranch life, and Regina proved to be an apt student. She learned to help with the calving in spring, to can vegetables for the winter, to shoot a rifle in case she ever needed to defend herself. She grew stronger and more confident, the frightened woman who had been praying for shelter in a dust storm slowly transforming into a capable rancher's wife. They worked together in easy partnership, making decisions about the ranch as a team. When Owen wanted to buy more land from a neighboring rancher, he asked for Regina's opinion. When Regina wanted to start raising chickens to sell eggs in town, Owen helped her build a proper coop. They complemented each other perfectly, and their love only grew deeper with each passing day. In the evenings, they would sit together on the porch, watching the sunset and talking about their days. Owen would tell her about the work he had done, the problems he had solved, the plans he had for the future. Regina would share stories from town, gossip she had heard at the general store, ideas she had for improving the house or the ranch. "I was thinking we could add a room," Regina said one evening in late spring. "Maybe off the back of the house where we could have a proper dining room." "That is a good idea," Owen said, pulling her closer against his side. "Though I was thinking we might need to add a different kind of room before too long." Regina looked up at him, confused. "What do you mean?" Owen's hand moved to rest on her stomach and his eyes were soft. "I mean a nursery, Regina, for when we have children." Regina's breath caught. They had talked about having children, of course, but in abstract terms as something that would happen eventually. But the way Owen was looking at her now, with such hope and love, made it feel immediate and real. "I would like that," she said softly. "I would like that very much." "Good," Owen said, and he kissed her slowly. "Because I cannot wait to see you holding our baby to build a family with you." As it turned out, they did not have to wait long. By summer, Regina suspected she was pregnant, and by autumn it was confirmed. Owen was over the moon with joy, treating Regina like she was made of glass, constantly worrying about her health and comfort. "Owen, I am fine," Regina laughed one day when he insisted on carrying a basket of laundry for her. "Women have babies all the time. I am not going to break." I know," Owen said, looking slightly sheepish. "But you are my wife, and that is my child you are carrying. I want to take care of you." "You do take care of me," Regina assured him, rising on her toes to kiss his cheek. "Every single day. But I also need to stay active, keep moving. It is good for me and the baby." Owen reluctantly agreed but continued to hover, which Regina found both annoying and endearing. She knew his concern came from a place of love, and she could not be angry at him for caring so much. The winter was long and cold, and Regina grew large with child. She spent her days preparing for the baby's arrival, sewing tiny clothes, arranging the small room off their bedroom that Owen had converted into a nursery. Mary Sullivan came by often to help and to offer advice, having raised 4 children of her own. "You are going to be a wonderful mother," Mary said one afternoon as they folded baby blankets together. I can see it in the way you prepare, the love you already have for this little one. I just want everything to be perfect, Regina admitted. I want to give this child everything I did not have, a stable home, two loving parents, security. And you will, Mary said confidently. That baby is lucky to have you and Owen as parents. When Regina's labor started on a snowy March evening, Owen nearly panicked. He sent Charlie racing into town to fetch the doctor and the midwife, while he stayed with Regina, holding her hand and looking absolutely terrified. "It is going to be fine," Regina said, squeezing his hand during a contraction. "Women do this every day, Owen." "I am going to be fine, and our baby is going to be fine." "I know," Owen said, but he looked pale. "I just hate seeing you in pain." "It will be worth it," Regina promised. "When we hold our baby, it will all be worth it." The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. But finally, as the sun was setting on March 15th, their son was born, healthy and squalling with a good set of lungs. The midwife cleaned him up and placed him in Regina's arms, and both she and Owen stared down at the tiny face in wonder. "He is perfect," Owen breathed, his finger gently stroking the baby's soft cheek. "Absolutely perfect. What should we name him?" Regina asked, looking up at Owen with tears of joy streaming down her face. Owen thought for a moment. "James, after my father, James Michael Patterson, James," Regina repeated, smiling down at her son. "Hello, James. Welcome to the world." Owen leaned down and kissed Regina's forehead. "Thank you. Thank you for him, for making me a father, for being the most incredible woman I have ever known." "Thank you for finding me that day," Regina said, "for answering my prayer. I cannot imagine my life without you, Owen. You and James are everything to me." The next few months were exhausting and wonderful. James was a good baby for the most part, but he still required constant attention and care. Regina and Owen took turns walking him when he was fussy, changing his nappies, feeding him. Owen was a natural father, gentle and patient, and watching him with their son made Regina fall in love with him all over again. "You are so good with him," she said one night, watching as Owen rocked James to sleep. "I love him," Owen said simply. "How could I not be? He is ours, Regina. Part of you and part of me." As James grew from an infant into a toddler, the Patterson family settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch continued to prosper under Owen's management, and Regina proved to be an excellent mother, patient and loving but firm when she needed to be. James was a happy child, full of curiosity and energy, and he adored both his parents. When James was 2, Regina discovered she was pregnant again. This time, Owen managed to control his hovering a bit better, though he still insisted on doing any heavy lifting and frequently checked in to make sure she was feeling well. Their daughter was born on a warm July day in 1878, with much less difficulty than James's birth. She was small and delicate, with Regina's dark hair and Owen's blue eyes, and they named her Sarah Grace Patterson. "Now our family is complete," Owen said, holding Sarah while James peeked curiously at his new sister. "Is she going to play with me?" James asked in his high, sweet voice. "When she gets bigger," Regina promised, ruffling her son's hair. "For now, you have to be gentle with her, help Mama and Papa take care of her." James took his role as big brother seriously, always wanting to help with Sarah, bringing her toys, singing to her when she cried. Watching her 2 children together filled Regina's heart with so much joy she sometimes thought it might overflow. The years passed quickly, full of laughter and love and the occasional challenge. The ranch continued to thrive, and Owen and Regina built a life they were both proud of. They added onto the house, creating more space for their growing family. They became pillars of the Belmont community, hosting gatherings, helping neighbors in need, contributing to the church and the school. When James turned 8, Owen began teaching him about ranching, taking him out to check on the cattle, showing him how to mend fences and care for the horses. James soaked up the knowledge eagerly, clearly destined to follow in his father's footsteps. Sarah, meanwhile, took after her mother, preferring to help in the house and garden. She had a gentle way with animals and people alike, and Regina often thought her daughter would grow up to be a healer or a teacher, someone who cared for others. One evening when James was 12 and Sarah was 10, the family sat together on the porch watching the sunset. It had become a tradition, this evening time together, a chance to reconnect after the busy day. "Tell us the story again," Sarah said, leaning against her father's side. "About how you met Mama." Owen smiled and pulled Regina closer with his free arm. "Well, it was a day much like any other, except for the dust storm. I was heading back to the ranch when I saw a woman pressed against the wall of the old trading post. She was praying, asking for help, for shelter from the storm. And you rode up and saved her," James chimed in. He had heard the story dozens of times but never tired of it. "I rode up and told her, your prayer just got answered," Owen continued. "I brought her back here, gave her food and shelter, and then I did the smartest thing I have ever done in my life. I fell in love with her." "And Mama fell in love with you too," Sarah said with a happy sigh. "That I did," Regina said, smiling at her husband. "Your father is the best man I know, and I thank God every day that I prayed for shelter on that particular road in that particular storm." "What if you had been somewhere else?" James asked. "What if Papa had not ridden by?" "Then I suppose I would have found you in some other way," Owen said, looking at Regina with so much love in his eyes that it made her heart skip. "Because I believe we were meant to find each other, one way or another. Your mother is my answered prayer too, you know. I just did not know I was praying for her until she arrived." As the sun set completely and the stars began to come out, the Patterson family remained on the porch, wrapped in the warmth of each other's presence. Regina looked around at her husband, her children, her home, and felt a profound sense of gratitude and contentment. She thought back to that terrified woman in the dust storm, praying desperately for help, never imagining that the help would come in the form of a handsome cowboy who would change her entire life. She had lost everything, her family, her home, her security, but in losing it all, she had found something infinitely better. She had found love, real and true and lasting. She had found a partner who respected her and cherished her. She had found a home where she belonged, where she was valued not for her social standing or her accomplishments, but simply for being herself. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked softly, noticing the faraway look in her eyes. "Just how lucky I am," Regina said. "How blessed we all are." "I am the lucky one," Owen said. "The day I found you was the day my life truly began." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out one by one, and Regina knew with absolute certainty that this was what happiness looked like. Not a grand adventure or a dramatic romance, but this quiet evening with the people she loved most in the world, this simple contentment, this deep and abiding peace. As the children grew older, they each found their own paths. James stayed on the ranch, learning everything Owen could teach him, preparing to take over someday. He was a good son, responsible and hardworking, with his father's strength and his mother's compassion. Sarah, as Regina had suspected, became a teacher, opening a small school in Belmont where she taught the children of ranchers and townspeople alike. She had inherited Regina's love of learning and Owen's patience, and she was beloved by her students and their parents. Both children eventually married, bringing new members into the Patterson family. James married Emma, the daughter of a neighboring rancher, and they gave Owen and Regina 3 grandchildren. Sarah married Thomas, the new doctor in town, and they had 2 children of their own. The ranch house that had once seemed so large with just Owen and Regina now filled regularly with the sounds of grandchildren playing, of family dinners that spilled out onto the porch, of laughter and love and life. Owen built additional cabins on the property so that James and his family could be close, and Sarah and her family visited every Sunday without fail. As Owen and Regina grew older, their love did not diminish but rather deepened, the way a river cuts deeper into stone over time. They knew each other completely, could communicate with just a glance, could anticipate each other's needs without speaking. They had weathered storms together, both literal and metaphorical, and had emerged stronger each time. On their 25th wedding anniversary, Owen surprised Regina with a trip to the high ridge where he had proposed all those years ago. They rode up together, their movements still in sync despite their age, and sat watching the sunset just as they had done so many times before. 25 years, Owen mused, his arm around Regina's shoulders. Seems like a lifetime and also like no time at all. The best 25 years of my life, Regina said, leaning into his warmth. Though I suppose the next 25 will be even better, Owen laughed. I like your optimism. Though I am not sure my old bones will last another 25 years. Nonsense, Regina said. You are as strong as you were the day we met. Well, almost. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the colors shift and change across the sky. Finally, Owen spoke again, his voice serious. I want you to know something, Regina. If I could go back and live my life over, I would not change a single thing. Every decision I made, every turn I took led me to you, and you are worth everything. Regina felt tears prick her eyes. I feel the same way. Even the hard parts, even losing my parents and my aunt and uncle, even that terrifying time alone in the wilderness. It all led me here to you, to this life we built together. I would not trade it for anything. Owen pulled her closer and kissed her, and it was sweet and tender, full of 25 years of love and devotion. When they pulled apart, Regina rested her head on his shoulder and smiled. Your prayer just got answered, she quoted softly, remembering that first day. The best answer I could have asked for. Ours, Owen corrected. Our prayer got answered because I was praying too, even if I did not know it. I was praying for someone exactly like you. They stayed on the ridge until the stars came out, talking about their life together, their children and grandchildren, their hopes for the future. And when they finally rode back down to the ranch, hand in hand, they knew that their love story was far from over. It would continue in their children, in their grandchildren, in the legacy they had built together. The years continued to pass, bringing new joys and new challenges. Owen developed arthritis in his hands, making some of the ranch work difficult, but James was there to take over the hardest tasks. Regina's eyesight began to fail, but Sarah helped her with reading and sewing, patient and gentle, just as her mother had always been with her. They celebrated their 30th anniversary, then their 35th. They welcomed more grandchildren, and then great-grandchildren. The ranch continued to prosper under James's management, and the Patterson name became synonymous with integrity and hard work throughout Belmont and beyond. On a warm summer evening, when Owen was 61 and Regina was 59, they sat together on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. The family had gathered for Sunday dinner, and the sounds of children playing drifted up from the yard. Listen to that, Owen said, his weathered hand clasping Regina's. The sound of our legacy. It is a beautiful sound, Regina agreed. We did well, did we not, building this life, this family? We did better than well, Owen said. We did extraordinary. They sat in comfortable silence, and Regina thought about how far she had come from that frightened young woman praying in a dust storm. She had been seeking shelter from the elements, but what she had found was shelter of a different kind. Shelter in Owen's love, in his strength, in his unwavering devotion. Shelter in the family they had created, in the community they had built, in the home they had made together. She looked at Owen, at the lines on his face that told the story of years spent in the sun, at the gray in his hair, at the hands that had held her through joy and sorrow. He was still the most handsome man she had ever seen, still the person she wanted beside her more than anyone else in the world. "I love you," she said simply. "I have loved you since the day you rode out of that dust storm, and I will love you until the day I die, and probably beyond that too." Owen turned to her, his blue eyes still as piercing as they had been that first day. "And I love you, Regina Patterson. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, the greatest blessing of my life." He leaned in and kissed her, and it was familiar and comfortable and still sent butterflies through her stomach after all these years. When they pulled apart, they continued to sit together, hand in hand, watching their family play in the yard as the sun set over the Montana landscape. As the evening deepened and the stars began to appear, one by one, Regina felt a profound sense of completion. Her life had not been easy, had not followed the path she had imagined as a young girl in St. Louis. But it had been good, so much better than she could have hoped. She had found love when she needed it most, had built a family and a home, had created a legacy that would continue long after she was gone, and it had all started with a prayer, a dust storm, and a cowboy who had appeared like an answer from heaven itself. Her miracle. Her answered prayer. Her Owen. The grandchildren were called in for bedtime, and the family slowly dispersed, some to their own homes, some to the guest rooms in the house. Owen and Regina remained on the porch, neither wanting to break the spell of the perfect evening. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Regina asked. "After you brought me inside and gave me water and food." "I said a lot of things that day," Owen said with a smile. "You asked if I had anywhere to go, any family, and when I said no, you offered me a job, a place to stay. You saved my life, Owen, but more than that, you gave me a reason to live again." Owen squeezed her hand. "You gave me the same thing. I was just existing before you came along, going through the motions of life but not really living. You woke me up, made me want to be better, do better. You made me want to build something lasting." "And we did," Regina said. "Look at all of this, Owen. Look at what we created together. Our children are happy and successful. Our grandchildren are healthy and loved. The ranch is thriving. We built something beautiful." "We built a life," Owen said simply. "The best kind of life, full of love and purpose and meaning." They sat together until the moon rose high in the sky, talking about memories and dreams, about the past and the future. And when they finally went inside to bed, they held each other close, grateful for another day together, another evening of peace and contentment. The seasons continued to cycle, spring to summer, autumn to winter, year after year. Owen and Regina grew older together, their steps slower but their love no less strong. They faced each challenge as they had always done, together, supporting each other through the hard times and celebrating together during the good. James took over complete management of the ranch, and he ran it with the same integrity and wisdom his father had shown. Sarah continued teaching, shaping young minds and hearts, passing on the values her parents had instilled in her. The grandchildren grew, some staying in Belmont, others venturing out to make their own marks on the world, but all of them carrying the Patterson name with pride. On Owen's 70th birthday, the family threw a grand celebration at the ranch. People came from all over Montana, friends and neighbors, business associates and family. There was food and music and laughter, and Owen spent the entire day with a smile on his face, surrounded by the people he loved most. As the party wound down and the guests began to leave, Owen found Regina in the garden, tending to her roses. Even at 68, she could not resist caring for her flowers, the ones she had planted so many years ago when she first came to the ranch as Owen's wife. "There you are," Owen said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I have been looking for you." "I needed a moment of quiet," Regina admitted, leaning back against him. "It was a wonderful party, but sometimes I like the peace better." "Me too," Owen said. He turned her in his arms so she was facing him. "Thank you for today, for organizing all of this. But mostly, thank you for the last 45 years. Thank you for being my wife, my partner, my best friend. Thank you for loving me." Regina reached up and cupped his face, her fingers gentle against his weathered skin. "Thank you for finding me all those years ago. Thank you for answering my prayer. Thank you for loving me back." They kissed, there in the garden surrounded by roses and the fading light of day, and it was perfect. After all these years, after all they had been through, their love remained constant, a steady flame that had never dimmed. As they walked back to the house together, hand in hand, Regina looked around at the ranch, at the life they had built, and smiled. This was her home, had been her home since that first day when Owen had brought her here out of the dust storm. This was where she belonged, where she had always been meant to be. The evening was peaceful, with just the sound of crickets and the gentle breeze rustling through the trees. Owen and Regina sat on their porch, a blanket wrapped around them both, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. "I wonder sometimes," Regina said softly, "what would have happened if things had been different? If the wagon train had not left me behind, if there had not been a dust storm, if you had not ridden by at exactly that moment. We would have found each other somehow," Owen said with certainty. "I truly believe that. Some things are just meant to be, and you and me, we were always meant to be." Regina smiled and snuggled closer to him. "I believe that too. We were written in the stars long before we ever met." They sat in comfortable silence, and Regina reflected on the incredible journey her life had been. From the privileged streets of St. Louis to the wilds of Montana, from orphan to wife to mother to grandmother, she had experienced loss and love, hardship and joy, despair and hope. And through it all, Owen had been by her side, her constant, her anchor, her home. "I have no regrets," she said suddenly. "Not a single one. Every moment of my life, good and bad, led me here to this perfect evening with you, and I would not change any of it." "Neither would I," Owen agreed. "Though I do wish I could have saved you from some of the pain, the loss you experienced before we met." "That pain made me who I am," Regina said. "It taught me to appreciate what I have, to never take love for granted. If I had lived an easy life, I might not have recognized the miracle you were when you appeared." Owen chuckled. "I am not sure I would call myself a miracle, just a cowboy who happened to be in the right place at the right time." "You are my miracle," Regina insisted. "The answer to my prayer, the love of my life, the reason I wake up grateful every single morning." They continued to sit together as the night deepened, wrapped in each other's warmth and the profound contentment of a life well lived. Around them, the ranch settled into quietness, the animals bedding down, the buildings standing solid and strong against the Montana sky. This was their legacy, Regina thought. Not just the land or the buildings or even the family they had created. Their legacy was the love they had shared, the example they had set, the proof that even in the hardest circumstances hope could bloom. That prayers could be answered in the most unexpected ways. That love, real and true, could transform everything. As the years advanced further, Owen and Regina continued to live at the ranch, surrounded by their ever-growing family. They moved a bit slower, needed a bit more help with daily tasks, but their spirits remained strong and their love for each other never wavered. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with another grand party, this one even larger than Owen's birthday celebration. The whole town of Belmont turned out, along with family members from across the country. There were speeches and toasts, stories and laughter, and through it all, Owen and Regina sat together, holding hands, their eyes bright with tears of joy. 50 years ago, Owen said during his speech, I rode out into a dust storm and found the most precious treasure Montana had to offer. Not gold or cattle or land, but a woman who would become my everything. Regina, you have made my life worth living. You have given me more joy than any man deserves. And I promise you, if God grants me another 50 years, I will spend every single one of them loving you. There was not a dry eye in the room, and Regina stood to hug her husband, holding him close as their family and friends applauded. This was what it was all about, she thought. This love, this commitment, this partnership that had weathered every storm and emerged stronger. The years continued, and Owen and Regina's health began to decline as was natural with age, but they faced it together, as they had faced everything else. When Owen's arthritis made it difficult to walk, Regina was there with a steady arm. When Regina's memory began to fade in small ways, Owen was there with patient reminders and gentle reassurance. On a cool autumn evening, when Owen was 76 and Regina was 74, they sat together on their porch, wrapped in quilts their granddaughters had made. The ranch was quiet, with most of the family having returned to their own homes after Sunday dinner. You remember that first sunset we watched together? Owen asked, his voice soft. The day after I found you. I remember everything about those early days, Regina said. How scared I was, how kind you were, how quickly I fell in love with you. I fell just as fast, Owen admitted. I think I loved you from the moment I saw you praying against that wall. You looked so brave and so vulnerable all at once. I knew right then that you were special, that you were meant to be mine. Regina leaned her head on his shoulder. We have had a good life, have we not? The best, Owen agreed. I could not have asked for anything more. They sat in peaceful silence, watching the colors paint the sky, and Regina felt a deep sense of completion wash over her. This was enough. This life, this love, this man beside her. It was more than enough. It was everything. As the stars began to appear, one by one, Regina thought about that young woman who had prayed so desperately for shelter all those years ago. She wished she could go back and tell her not to be afraid, that everything would work out better than she could possibly imagine. That the cowboy who appeared out of the dust would be her salvation in every possible way. But perhaps that young woman would not have believed her. Perhaps she needed to live through it all, experience it all, to truly appreciate the incredible gift she had been given. The gift of Owen's love, of their family, of this life they had built together from nothing but faith and determination and an unshakable commitment to each other. What are you thinking about? Owen asked, noticing her faraway expression. Just how blessed we are, Regina said. How incredibly, wonderfully blessed. That we are, Owen agreed, kissing the top of her head. That we are. The years rolled on, bringing with them the inevitable march of time. Owen's health began to fail more noticeably as he approached his 80th year. His heart was weak, the doctor said, worn out from a lifetime of hard work and dedication. But even as his body failed him, his mind remained sharp, and his love for Regina never dimmed. Regina, too, faced the challenges of age. Her joints ached, her vision continued to deteriorate, and she tired more easily. But like Owen, her spirit remained strong, and her commitment to their love never wavered. They spent their days quietly, often sitting together on the porch, holding hands and watching the world go by. Their children and grandchildren visited regularly, filling the house with life and laughter. But Regina's favorite times were the quiet moments alone with Owen, when they could simply be together without any distractions. On a warm spring morning, shortly after Owen's 80th birthday, Regina woke to find him watching her with an intensity that made her heart skip. "What is it?" she asked, reaching up to cup his face. "I am just memorizing you," Owen said softly, "making sure I remember every detail. The way the morning light catches in your hair, the little wrinkles around your eyes that appear when you smile, the softness of your hand in mine. I want to remember it all." Regina felt tears prick her eyes. "You are not going anywhere. We still have years together." "I hope so," Owen said. "But if we do not, I want you to know that every single day with you has been a gift. You made my life worth living, Regina. You gave me purpose and joy and love beyond measure. Whatever happens, I want you to remember that." "Nothing is going to happen," Regina said firmly, though fear clutched at her heart. "We are going to grow old together just like we planned." Owen smiled and pulled her close. "We already are old, my love, but yes, I hope we have many more years together. Many more sunsets and sunrises, many more family dinners and quiet evenings. I am not ready to leave you yet." They held each other close, and Regina tried to ignore the fear that had taken root in her heart. She had known, of course, that they would not live forever. But knowing it intellectually and facing it emotionally were two very different things. As summer arrived, Owen's condition stabilized, and Regina allowed herself to hope that they would indeed have many more years together. They continued their quiet routine, surrounded by family, sustained by love. The ranch thrived under James's management, and the grandchildren continued to grow and flourish. On a beautiful evening in late July, the family gathered for a celebration of James and Emma's 30th wedding anniversary. There was food and music and dancing, and Owen insisted on taking Regina for one last turn around the floor. "Just like our wedding day," he said, holding her close as they swayed to the music. "You are just as beautiful now as you were then." "And you are just as charming," Regina said with a smile, though she could feel how much the simple dance was taxing him. "Though perhaps we should sit down. You need to conserve your strength." "I am fine," Owen insisted. "I want to dance with my wife, celebrate our son's happiness. Let me have this moment." So Regina allowed him to lead her around the floor, her heart full of love and fear in equal measure. This man, her husband, her partner, her best friend. She could not imagine life without him, did not want to imagine it. As the celebration wound down and the family dispersed, Owen and Regina returned to their porch, their favorite spot. They sat together, holding hands, watching the stars emerge one by one. "Thank you for today," Owen said softly. "For all the days, for this incredible life we have built together." "Thank you," Regina echoed, "for answering my prayer all those years ago, for being exactly what I needed exactly when I needed it." They sat in comfortable silence, and Regina allowed herself to believe that they had many more nights like this ahead of them. Many more quiet evenings, many more shared sunsets, many more years of love and companionship. Owen lived for 3 more years, each day a precious gift. He grew frailer, spent more time resting, but his love for Regina never diminished. If anything, it seemed to grow stronger as time went on, as if he was determined to fill every remaining moment with as much love as possible. On a cool autumn evening, shortly after his 83rd birthday, Owen asked Regina to sit with him on the porch one last time. The sky was painted in brilliant shades of orange and pink, and the air was crisp with the promise of winter to come. "Do you remember the first time we sat here together?" Owen asked, his hand clasped tightly in Regina's. "I remember everything," Regina said, her throat tight with unshed tears. "Every moment, every word, every touch, it is all precious to me." "I want you to know something," Owen said, turning to face her. His blue eyes, though dimmed by age, still held that same intensity that had captured her heart so many years ago. "Loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. Building this life with you, raising our children, creating this family, it has all been more than I ever dreamed possible. You gave me everything, Regina, everything." "As you gave me," Regina said, tears streaming down her face now. "You saved me, Owen. Not just that day in the dust storm, but every day since. You showed me what real love looks like, what commitment and partnership truly mean. You are the best man I have ever known." Owen smiled, that familiar, warm smile that still made her heart skip. "Your prayer just got answered. That is what I told you that first day. But the truth is, you were the answer to my prayer too. I just did not know I was praying until you appeared." They sat together as the sun set completely, holding each other close, whispering words of love and gratitude. And when the first stars appeared, Owen took one last shuddering breath and closed his eyes, his hand still clasped tightly in Regina's. Regina sat with him for a long time, holding the hand that had held hers through 48 years of marriage, through joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle. She whispered words of love into the darkening night, thanking him for every moment they had shared, promising to carry their love forward until they could be reunited. When James and Sarah arrived, drawn by a feeling they could not name, they found their mother on the porch, still holding their father's hand, her face wet with tears but peaceful. "He is gone," Regina said softly. "He waited for the sunset, made sure I knew how much he loved me, and then he left. Just like him to be considerate even at the end." The funeral was attended by the entire town of Belmont and people from across Montana who had known and respected Owen Patterson. Regina stood strong throughout it all, supported by her children and grandchildren, sustained by the incredible love Owen had given her and the beautiful life they had built together. In the days and weeks that followed, Regina moved through her grief with the same grace she had brought to everything else in her life. She missed Owen with an ache that was physical, but she also felt his presence everywhere. In the house they had shared, in the ranch he had built, in the faces of their children and grandchildren who carried his legacy forward. She continued to live at the ranch, refusing to move into town despite her children's gentle suggestions. This was her home, the place where she had found love and built a life. She was not leaving it until she had to. Regina spent her days tending her garden, playing with great-grandchildren, and sitting on the porch in the evening, still expecting to see Owen come walking around the corner. She talked to him often, sharing her day, asking his opinion, feeling his presence like a warm blanket around her shoulders. "I miss you," she would say to the empty air. "But I know you are still with me. I feel you in every sunset, every star, every gentle breeze. You are not really gone. You are just waiting for me to join you." 5 years after Owen's passing, Regina woke one morning feeling different. There was a lightness in her chest, a sense of anticipation she had not felt since Owen died. She went about her day as normal, visiting with Sarah, who had stopped by with fresh bread, playing with her great-granddaughter who was learning to walk, tending to her roses in the garden. As evening approached, she made her way to the porch, settling into her favorite chair with a blanket around her shoulders. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors, and Regina felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. "I will be with you soon," she whispered, knowing somehow that Owen could hear her. Wait for me, my love, just a little longer." As the stars began to appear, Regina closed her eyes, a smile on her face, and slipped away peacefully. She was found the next morning by James, who had come by to check on her, still sitting in her chair with that peaceful smile, looking for all the world like she had simply fallen asleep watching the sunset. The town of Belmont mourned the loss of Regina Patterson, but they also celebrated her incredible life. She was buried next to Owen on the ranch, under a large oak tree they had planted together in their first year of marriage. The headstone read, "Owen Patterson, 1846–1929, devoted husband, father, and friend Regina Patterson, 1851–1934, beloved wife, mother, and heart of our family together forever." The ranch continued to thrive under James's care, and eventually under his son's care, and so on through the generations. The house remained standing, carefully maintained by each successive generation of Pattersons. And on the porch, there were always two chairs, side by side, a testament to the love story that had begun there so many years ago. The story of Owen and Regina became legend in Belmont, passed down from generation to generation. The tale of the cowboy who found a woman praying in a dust storm and told her, "Your prayer just got answered." The story of two people who built an incredible life together through love, dedication, and an unshakable commitment to each other. Their great-great-grandchildren still lived on the ranch, still tended the land that Owen and Regina had loved so much. And on quiet evenings, if you sat very still on that old porch, some said you could still feel the presence of that love, eternal and unchanging, a reminder that some prayers are answered in the most beautiful and unexpected ways. The legacy of Owen and Regina Patterson lived on not just in their descendants, but in the values they had instilled, the love they had shared, and the example they had set. They had shown that real love was patient and kind, strong and enduring. They had proven that even in the hardest circumstances, hope and faith could lead to miracles. And they had demonstrated that a life built on love was the most valuable thing a person could create. Their story was one of answered prayers, of second chances, of love that transcended time and circumstance. It was a reminder that sometimes the most desperate moments can lead to the greatest blessings, and that the right person appearing at the right time can change everything. And so the sun continued to set over the Double P Ranch in Belmont, Montana, painting the sky in brilliant colors, just as it had done on that first evening when Owen brought Regina home. The land remained, the family thrived, and the love story of a cowboy and the woman he saved from a dust storm lived on, inspiring generation after generation to believe in the power of love, the importance of faith, and the beauty of answered prayers.